today we are going to finish installing the old air products in my 1985 C10 known as Panda. About 6 or 7 months ago, we uploaded a video installing the heat side when it was nice and cold outside and we really wanted that heat. Not only has it been brought up about how I haven't put the cold side on it, and I've been, for my own reasons or whatever, I talked about in the Q&A, we'll link right here. I went out and started the truck today and it was brutally hot. Tired of being hot. And we're going to C10s in the mountains this weekend, and I don't want to spend 5 hours in the truck being hot. So I think it's time we try to get this AC system set up on the truck. We're going to remove the grill, pull the cold air intake off, try to lay the radiator back, and be able to get the condenser in there. But first we got to get some brackets on the condenser. You know, most of their main components are universal and they give you the brackets that you need for your application. Another thing we got is the brackets for the AC compressor. They are bare steel, so we have to paint those. Probably just going to paint them black. Good old rattle can stuff. But we've got a few things we've got to do to prep and get ready to install the system, and that's what we're going to work on in the first part of the video. Now, to really see this thing in action, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications, because we are going to be filming this weekend at C10s in the mountains, and when we get home, we're going to be cutting, editing, and dropping that episode. Let's dive into it. Hey guys, real quick, I just want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Brian Tooley Racing. They recently sponsored our truck and our YouTube channel and sent us a BTR Trinity LS3 intake. We've got a set of rectangle port heads, and we picked up a BTR shaft rocker kit to install on this thing before we head to Burnout Wars at LS Fest East in September of this year. So you guys make sure to go check out Brian Tooley Racing for all your camshafts, valve train, bottom end stuff. They've got a whole arsenal of parts and a lot of stuff that you can't find anywhere else. And remember, we're direct dealers for Brian Tooley Racing, so if there's something you need help finding, send us an email and let us know, and we can get what you need drop shipped directly to you via BTR. Now let's get back into getting this thing installed and chilling. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to look up the instructions for this too and follow that, but for the most part, I know what we got here. We've got our brackets for our condenser and our dryer, bolt up to the condenser itself. We've got our AC lines, which we will have to take to town and have crimped because we do not have the crimper for that. We've got our hardware kit for our AC bracket for the compressor. Here's the two brackets we're going to have to paint black. We've got our dryer, a few little hard lines here, an empty bag from our brackets. We've got our hoses. We've got a belt tensioner. We have a couple adapters for the ducts, but I'm missing a couple pieces for that, so we're not going to be putting those in this video. And then we have our main piece here, the compressor, or I'm sorry, the condenser and the compressor. And then what looks to be like maybe a binary switch. We need to paint these, and we should probably paint these too or they're going to rust. These steel spacers right here. All the work I did to take weight off the front of the truck. And here I am adding more weight back. But we're going to have to figure this out. Looks like we might have some paper instructions within certain pieces. I know we have one with a condenser. That's going to help tremendously. I think one of our first steps is going to be trying to get all these little pieces painted. That way we don't have a rusty looking engine bay. So we got a ton of stuff going on here. I don't really know exactly what all this goes to. What I like to do is go through and sort everything so I know exactly what pieces are which and I know how many I have of each. Alright guys, so real quick, whether you're doing an old air products, a vintage air, any of these old air systems, when you're putting your brackets on your condenser, always make sure that you have your condenser sitting like it is on the picture. You've got a bigger port and a smaller port. Now they don't particularly show us in the picture which one is which, other than the simple clue of the dryer goes on this side here. We have this little S-shaped hard line. Now if I take that S-shaped hard line, it doesn't fit on this end. So that means it's got to go on this end. So that's going to put our smaller port at the bottom. And then the brackets are numbered. The part numbers 1600 and 1601, and they go catty corner from each other. So we've got a 600 here, a 600 here, a 601, and a 601. And now we can tighten our brackets down, get the dryer mounted up, keep rocking and rolling. All right, guys, now we're bolting up the dryer, and one of the things we need to do when we do that is set this hard line up, that S hard line we were talking about. So we're going to set it up like that right there. All right, so we got a little mock-up test fit going on here. Make sure we're putting this thing together right. Now, something that's very important, they give you plenty of with the kit. Make sure you use them or you're going to run into problems. And that's your seals. So we need to put a seal on both ends of this deal and put a little bit of lube on them. Now I did set those seals aside. It's these two little bad boys right here. They send us a little tube of lube. Don't take a lot, just a drop. I want to pinch that O-ring when you put that thing together and create yourself a leak, and then the next thing you know, you're taking everything back apart. Ask me how I know. Before you tighten that all the way up, get this one popped in. Then we're going to go ahead and put our nuts on the bottom there, at least try to. Don't make them like they used to. I do have to make a small adjustment with my Transcooler here. When I put it in too high, and when you close the hood, this right here was driven down into the top of the Transcooler. Surprisingly, it still flows great and does not leak, but we need to move that down a little bit because it's got a bracket kind of bent and bowed in, being in the way of right where the condenser is going to be. So we've got the radiator laid back. We're hoping we can do this without taking it all the way out and having to bleed the coolant system and buy more coolant and all that good stuff. So I'm going to aim to do it with the radiator sitting right here, lean back a little bit. We're going to get this Transcooler situation figured out, and then we're going to try to get this condenser mounted in. So far, the instructions are pretty straightforward. Everything's going together pretty good. Hope it stays that way. But we're going to keep rocking and rolling. I got to undo this other side of this transmission cooler now. So the instructions say that the 81 and earlier models, you're going to have to drill some extra holes in the core support. Being my truck is at 85 and falls post 81. Understanding this correctly, you push these into the core support from the inside behind the radiator, and then you use the longer bolts to run through the condenser bracket into that. And that's for the 4 upper bolts on the 2 upper mounts. As far as the lowers go, we already have the holes there, and it looks like it just takes one of the smaller Allen headed screws, the little lock nuts. So we've got the condenser in the truck. I've already got 2 of these pushed in the core support. About to push the other 2 in now and try to get this thing mounted up. Alright guys, so now it's time to put the compressor on. We paint our brackets black and all of our spacers. We've kind of got it laid out by the instructions on what goes where and how we're going to set it up here. Start building this out on the truck, show you guys what we got. Did pull the factory belt and tensioner off the water pump, and this setup's going to go right over here. Alright, we got the bracket bolted up, just held on there loose though. Thing hangs over tremendously. Alright, so the compressor's bolted up solid. It's on there, tensioner's on. But I do notice a problem, and that's with the belt routing diagram on here. If you notice, the alternators, it's like a stock setup. So alternator's up top, straight above the power steering, and then you have an idler pulley right here. Versus our setup on the truck, the alternator's set more out, and the idler is below it. But this idler is just your idler and your spacer right here. It sits flush on that bracket. So I think what I can do is I can drill a hole probably somewhere in here and bring that belt off the top of the compressor, under the idler, and over the alternator here. Now I'm not going to be able to use the belt that came with the kit because I have an underdrive pulley and this bracket set up here. So we'll probably have to play with some belts to figure out exactly which one we need. I gotta put my little silicone deal back on my TPS right there. But we're making some leadway. Recently swapped this radiator out, and this fan right here wasn't working, so I had to take one of my old fans and put it on. Alright, so we got our ends laid out here. We're gonna figure out what goes where, mock up our hoses, and then I'm gonna have to take these to town and get them crimped. Alright, so here's a little thermostat deal. We've got to put this on one of the lines coming through the firewall. Put this up tight against the line and pack some of this stuff around it and leave it alone. As you can see, what I did was I uncoiled that copper, shoved it in the firewall. The tight coil is right here. right above the line, and now I'm gonna push that down to it and wrap it with that stuff that they gave us. All right, so we got our crimp fittings on, kind of mocked up, that way we know where they go. The way they did this is we have 3 different size hoses. We've got this big one right here, it goes with this big one. We have a medium sized one, goes to a medium sized one. We have a small one, goes to the small one. I've seen a lot of installs where people will literally not even cut the hoses, they will just crimp the ends on and go, and you end up with a bunch of extra hose in here. So we're going to size these up and trim them back a little bit and try to get it tidied up, mock it up, and then we can take the hoses from there and have them all crimped. All right, so I trimmed this one down, so it's pretty much boom, straight shot. This one I did leave at the factory length, and that's just because it actually snaked and ran along really nicely. And then we've got the biggest one, which I think what I'm going to do is I'll kind of loop it like this and cut it about right here, and that should allow us what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and make this cut, get that sized up, show you guys what we're talking about. Alright, so that's essentially what the end result will look like. Of course, these will be crimped, and we'll tie our hoses together, make sure they don't do whatever they decide they want to do on their own. I feel like that looks a lot cleaner than having a big loop right here and just unnecessary hose. Engine bay ain't as empty as it used to be, that's for sure. Alright, well now we can take these things off and take them to town and get them crimped. Probably try to do that in the morning before we come in. We can get those installed tomorrow. Now we just gotta get our binary switch in, run a little bit of wiring. Alright, so we went and got the hoses crimped. They're ready to go. So I went ahead and put my O-rings on. Still got to put a dab of oil on there. We're about to go ahead and get these installed. Alright, so we got all the hoses installed and tightened up. I got a fresh port for the PCV after having to move the cold air intake up because of the AC lines. My line wasn't long enough, so I made a new one of those. Then we ended up going with a 109 and 11/16 inch belt. It looks like it's going to ride pretty good on the tensioner, so we're going to try that. Now we're pretty much down to wiring this thing up, getting the cold air intake put back on, and then charging it up and seeing what happens. All right, guys, so after about 3 or 4 nights of staying late and working on this, we actually got it installed. We got it charged. We went out and tested it today. Before I really speak on it much, I want to use it over the weekend and really see how it does on a road trip. But so far, it blows ice cold. I think the issue that I'm seeing isn't really with the air unit itself. I think it's more with the truck, and that's the truck wants to get warm and then stop and go traffic or sitting idling. It's not really a new issue, but it is gotten a little worse now that we've installed the air. But that's what comes with putting a condenser in front of a radiator and blocking airflow. But if you want to see how our weekend goes using the old air products in Panda, make sure to ring that bell and get notifications. That way you get updates on the next video that's coming out. And then if you like content like this and you want to see us wrench on this truck more along with other projects we have going on around here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are installing a BTR Trinity intake, a set of rectangle port heads, a BTR shaft rocker kit and trunnion upgrade, and getting Panda ready for Burnout Wars at LS Fest East this year. But guys, that's going to sum it up for this episode. We will see y'all at C10s in the mountains this weekend. Drop us a comment, let us know how you're liking the content, and if you're not following us, grab that button.